Chapter 1. Once upon a family, there was a father who was given a brand new start, but he made a complete mess of it.
So, bedtime stories that you have never heard. The next few weeks, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at real families that we find in the Bible. Real families with real issues, just like you and me. We're looking at some of the stories, though, just so you know, they're not necessarily so neat and nice and Hallmark-ish, if you know what I mean. They don't always seem to have the perfect ending, but guess what? Real life is kind of that way, right? It's not always so neat and nice, and you may wonder if it's going to be a perfect ending. And yet, what our hope is if we look at these real families and we see these real families, what we'll find out is family dysfunction is nothing new. and these families struggle with some of the same things as me and you. And at the same time, what we hope you'll see is that the hope that we have in Jesus can be applied and can make a difference and can redeem even the most dysfunctional crew. So let's get started. If you got a Bible, pull it out. We're going to begin in Genesis chapter 6. That's where we're going to begin. If you got a smartphone, you can pull that out. You can check in here at Christ Lutheran, and you can make a note about somebody you want to invite to come with you next week, and then go to the website on the screen where you can read the scriptures that we're going to be looking at. You can make notes, and we got even some other special surveys and questions there that's just specifically for today. All right, you can check that out later. Now, in Genesis 6, we meet a guy, and his name is Noah. And probably most of us in this room know a little bit about Noah. Some of us, maybe because of the motion picture film that came out this year, we might think of Russell Crowe. But most of us probably, the picture that comes to mind is some guy with gray old hair. He's got a big long beard, kind of ZZ Top-ish, right? And he is the guy who made the ark, was married to Joan, Joan of Arc. No, that was, thank you, Jesse. That was very nice, yes. Different story altogether, different guy, okay. But he is a guy who was all about the flood and the ark and all that stuff. And today, actually, we're going to look at his story, but we're going to look at a different part of the story. We're going to go past when he built the ark and when the flood came and all the animals and the rainbow and all that kind of stuff. We're going to look at what happened next. But before we do that, let's do just a little bit of the backstory. So the world at that day was going bad. I mean, it was really bad. Everyone except for Noah was rebelling from God, and God was getting frustrated. He was ready to throw in the towel. He was ready to wash his hands of his creation. And then we get to Genesis 6, and we'll start it at verse 9. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people of the earth had corrupted their ways. And so God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people except Noah. And then he goes on and he starts telling Noah about how he's going to save him. And the fact that, I know you've never seen, the rains come down. You never know what a flood really is. You've never sailed the high seas. But guess what? You're going to build a boat. And not just any boat. No, a big old ark. Football and a half field long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet tall. It was crazy big. I mean, anybody here watch Evan Almighty? I'm not saying that was biblically accurate, but the point is, you can only imagine as people walked by, saw this thing going on, they were like, Noah, you lost it. This is ridiculous. What are you thinking? And you can only imagine that Noah himself, during that time, he questioned himself thousands of times with all the comments of people and all the things that were going on until the animals started to come. So 2 by 2 they came, and they went into the ark, and so did Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and their wives, and then they closed the door, and the rains came. 40 days, 40 nights, and all of creation was flooded, and all of creation outside that ark ceased to exist. Well, after months, the waters receded and the land, it became dry again. And we get to Genesis chapter 8, and we'll pick it up at verse 15. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so that they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number on it." And then God went on and he said, never again. I will never do what I just did again. In fact, he gives a covenant. He gives this new covenant. He gives a sign, and it's a rainbow in the sky. And he says, every time you see that covenant, that sign, that rainbow reminds you that I will never again abolish my creation, but I promise I will redeem it. And there's this new beginning, which is where we pick up the story this morning. Because in some ways, it's like God pushed the reset button, and he takes everything back and starts it all over again. It's like we rewind time, and we're back with Adam and Eve in the garden again. And he says that all of creation is for you to take care of and to bless you. So then we get to chapter 9. In chapter 9, we see how Noah begins this new beginning. Chapter 9, we'll pick it up in verse 20. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. And when he drank some of his wine, he became drunk, and he lay uncovered inside his tent. So this is Noah. He's the one righteous man before the flood. He's the man that built the ark for all the world to see. He's the man that witnessed God bring all the animals to him. He watched as God brought destruction around him but spared him. He stood by while God made this incredible covenant with him. He was a man who was given this opportunity to start over and to start over good. And he took that new beginning. He took the fruit. He took the blessing of God that God had given him, and he misused that gift. And he ended up disgraced, passed out on the floor, naked. And quite honestly, not really the picture that we'd like to have of a superhero stud from the Bible, is it? It's kind of disappointing, to be honest. And all of a sudden we see that Noah's new beginning isn't what he expected it to be. It doesn't look like he expected it to turn out. And yet, if we think about it, that's the first lesson we get from the story. It's found in the actual imperfection of Noah. Because see, there is this false idea, there's this lie that's out there that when you or I or anybody gets this new beginning, when we all of a sudden become a part of God's family, guess what? That then you're not ever going to struggle with life anymore. You're not going to do anything bad anymore. That's a lie. That's a lie from Satan himself. You know, if you were with us the last series, we talked about the elephants in the room, the elephant in the room, the big, bad, powerful issues in our life. And if we have a relationship with Jesus, sure, it's going to change us. Sure, it's going to impact us. Sure, it better change us. It's going to help us with the what's right and wrong. It's going to help us to face those elephants and deal with those elephants and tackle those elephants, hopefully kill those elephants, find forgiveness from those elephants. But it doesn't mean that we don't have a bullseye on our back and Satan's going to try to trip us up, and that we never struggle with those elephants anymore. And so there's this lie out there that somehow, some way, no, you shouldn't do that. And so people come across a story like this of Noah, and they look at that and they point at that and they go, wow, I'm not sure if he's really a faithful man. Maybe he wasn't faithful after all. Or people come across your dirty laundry, and guess what? You have dirty laundry. I have dirty laundry. And they point at that and they go, gosh, I'm not sure you're really a follower of Jesus, are you? Or are you? And unfortunately, that lie, what it does is it causes you and I sometimes to wake up in the middle of the night or the next morning or something and all of a sudden say, gosh, I don't know. Where do I really stand before God? A month ago, I had the honor, we were out of town, and some family friends of ours, they asked me to baptize two of their kids, which was really a cool event. And so we were at the lake, and I got to baptize them there. It was so awesome. The last couple of weeks, honestly, it might sound crazy to you, but some of the greatest things as a pastor is having those moments when somebody says, "Hey, pastor, can I talk to you?" And that last series got some people saying, "Hey, I've got elephants I need to talk about. I need some new beginnings in my life." And so they came and they just kind of opened up their heart. They shared things. And really what they wanted to hear was that God still loved them and that Jesus forgave them. That's what they wanted to hear. And I was able to share that. But you know what? In the last month since I baptized those two kids, in the last week or two or three or whatever, since I've had the opportunity to proclaim to somebody one-on-one, "Hey, you know what? Jesus still loves you. He forgives you." And people have gotten this new beginning in their life. Those same people have produced some major dirty laundry in their life. It's come to convict them and haunt them. And all of a sudden we start to realize, gosh, you know what? Our new beginnings don't turn out how we've expected them to turn out, which may start to make us question where we really stand before God. We might jump to all kinds of different conclusions, like, "Oh man, did I just blow it?" We'll call him Jim. He was a youth of mine a long time ago, and he was one of these teenagers that he had a gift. He had a gift of making a mess of things. You know what I mean? Have you ever come across somebody like that? You know, he finally got on a sports team at high school, and he was so proud, and he got in a fight and got kicked out. You know, he finally gets a job, a part-time job, and then something goes missing at work, and he's got the rap sheet, and so he gets fired. He finally gets a car, and guess what happens? He gets in an accident, loses the car, on and on and on kind of thing. And he got to this point where he kind of hit his lowest of lows, and he came to a youth night that I was doing at one time, and he asked to talk with me afterwards, and that night he just poured his heart out, and he was saying, "I'm tired of messing up. I'm tired of doing this thing on my own. I need some help." And that night, through the Holy Spirit working in him, he said, "I need Jesus." Next week, he got baptized, and it was so awesome. And he was talking about how he's got this new beginning. He was talking about this new chapter in his life. And that's why it was so painful 6-9 months later when I got a phone call, and he was in the county jail doing 12 months. And we are masters of making a mess of things, aren't we? I mean, we're great at screwing things up. We're great at taking the blessings of God and just making the total mess of it. But the truth is that's because we have this disease. We have this disease that is incurable as long as we are on this earth. We have this disease that gives us this disposition to take what is good and what is a gift and misuse it and abuse it and make a mess of it to bring us to pain and disappointment and major embarrassment, and you fill in the blank on it. You know what I mean? It just comes natural to us. It's not right, it's not okay, it's not acceptable, but it's reality, and we shouldn't be completely surprised by it, but we shouldn't be okay with it. But at the same time, we shouldn't be paralyzed by it because of Jesus, through the power of God's Spirit, we can wage war against it. Which really comes to this point of begging the question that each one of us, we got to start asking ourselves, right? Is what gift from God, what blessing from God have I taken and all of a sudden misused to produce a bunch of dirty laundry, a huge mess in my life? Think about it. You know, for some of us, I would assume it's things like money or status or success or something like that, because I come across, I do this myself. Now, you know, in some ways, out of one corner of the mouth, on one part of you, you're like, yeah, well, you know, it's all because of God. God's the one who's given it. I need to give him all the glory. I got to depend on him for it all. And yet on the other side, what do? It's me. And sometimes it's me. I'm so awesome. And other times it's me. I got to figure this out. I got to keep producing. I got to keep being successful. I got to keep making this happen. And the result of that ends up paralyzing me as I feel crushed by this world, or it inflates me. As in some ways, I end up putting myself in that God-like place. And I rely only on myself. Or maybe for you, it's more like Noah. What did Noah take? He took things like tangible things like fruit or wine or food or relationships or fun or whatever. And he took those things, these blessings, all gifts from God, and he made a mess of it. So what are those things? What are those things that God has given you, blessed you, and you take and you misuse, you abuse, you make a mess of? And then where does it take us? Well, look at verse 22. Genesis 9, verse 22. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth, they took a garment and laid it across their shoulders, and they walked in backwards, and they covered their father's naked body. And their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father naked. I don't know, it's a few years from now, or from a few years back, but back in 2007, how many of you guys saw that YouTube video that went viral? It was of the Hoff, David Hasselhoff. The one where he was on the ground, drunk, half naked, eating a hamburger. Yeah, I was crushed because I love Knight Rider. It was so awesome, right? And here, his dirty laundry is like out for everybody to see. He's totally shamed. And yet, you know what? That's exactly what Ham is doing right here. He is YouTubing to the whole world. Okay, the world wasn't very big at that time. It was like just a few people, but he was broadcasting to the whole world the dirty laundry of his dad. He wasn't just sharing news. No, he was sharing shame. He was like, hey guys, you got to go check this out. And Dad's over there. You got to check this. He's naked. He's laying there. Yeah, he's such an idiot. You have to understand the betrayal that was. Because Ham wasn't just the son of Noah. Noah wasn't just his dad. It was more than that. I mean, under God, Noah was the authority at that time. He was president, he was police, he was prophet, he was priest, he was pastor, everything to Ham. And Ham's like going, look at his faults. Look at how messed up Dad is. We can relate, can't we? Because we get so addicted to doing that same thing. There's a whole industry all about that, TMZ. Never watch it. My wife does all the time, but just kidding. She's never watched it. Don't tell her that. Oh yeah, she's right there. Never mind. Or the Globe or National Enquirer. I mean, we have a whole industry about it, and we can say, "Oh, that's out there," but we have a whole addiction to it too, because we have those gossip lines that we get connected into, or maybe we're the center of, because we love to point out everybody else's faults, because it makes us feel better, doesn't it? But have you ever been on the other side? Where all of a sudden it was your laundry aired? Where you did something really stupid, or maybe it was just an accident, or maybe it was like, wow, you crossed the line, but it was for everybody to see. Have you ever been there? was a freshman in high school. We had just moved to the Chicago area. I was in this big high school, and I remember one day that it literally took me a couple years to live down. It was gym class, so it was the last period of the day, and we're outside. We're playing flag football, co-ed flag football. Maybe you can see where this is going. And we are playing this flag football, and we are close to scoring a touchdown. We got it just a couple yards ago. They say, "Hauser, you do it." All right, fine. I'm going to run this ball. And so I ran, and I scored a touchdown because they did not get my flag. They got my shorts. I was deep-pantsed in front of my 40 newest friends, if you know what I mean. That was bad. Not quite as bad as what happened later. Okay? Later, I am on offense, and I am guarding my quarterback, and there is this girl, a very pretty girl, a very popular pretty girl, who is rushing the quarterback, and I want to block her. And you can probably understand what happened next. And I did not want either of those things to happen. Believe me, I didn't want the attention. But coming out of that gym class, you know what I was known as? I was known as the pervert who strips in class and is pretty friendly with the girls. It's not me. But see, that's what the world, whether you're guilty or not, that's what the world wants to do. They want to take your dirty laundry and they want to run with it. And by the way, they did. They ran with my shorts. The gym teacher had to chase them down. You know? And there you are. You're standing and you are exposed and condemned and destroyed. That's what happens in this world. Now, I don't know if you've experienced it. Actually, I bet you have. Maybe it's a stupid decision you made. Maybe it's something you said. Maybe it's words that have stabbed somebody else in the back. Maybe it's an event in your family history that is completely shady and you guys wish you could get rid of. Maybe it's that some friends have blacklisted you, or maybe it's that you have been the talk of the gossip line. But there is still covering for your most public and most painful sins. There is. You know, the two other brothers, it's kind of an interesting story. We don't get a whole lot about the story, but they do something really powerful. They could have walked away, you know what I mean? They could have just left Dad in disgrace and just left him there. They could have gone in and they could have made fun of Dad and joined in with the fun, but they didn't. They brought dignity and grace to the situation. They covered their dad, and they didn't cover their dad in a way that, you know, hey, we're just going to cover this thing up so that we all just pretend it didn't happen. No, they came to bring dignity and grace. You know, the reason we talk about this story is because we see pictures of this over and over again throughout the Old Testament and into the New Testament. Think back to Genesis 3. Maybe some of you know this story. So Adam and Eve, what did they do? They ended up going against God. They rebelled. The result was a curse. The curse included them being ashamed and insecure in their own skins to the point that they were totally overwhelmed with shame because of their nakedness. And what does God do? He sacrifices an animal and spills blood to bring dignity and grace and cover them. Immense act of grace. Take that a little farther and we get, again, when Jesus comes to earth and he lives a life that knows temptation, but a life that can stand to that temptation. He knows pain. He becomes this perfect sacrifice. We look at 2 Corinthians and it says this: God made him who knew no sin, who had no sin, to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. And so Jesus, innocent, perfect, blameless, ends up getting humiliated, stripped, and whipped, and his bare body is hung upon a cross and exposed for the world to see. But in that moment, something amazing happens. As his blood was shed, his body was sacrificed for you, in your place. He was disgraced so that you could experience grace. Think about it. I mean, that's the beauty of what we just sacrificed. We just celebrated just a few moments ago. That's the beauty of understanding of what this gift is that when we come and we eat this bread and wine, that God's doing something more there, and we actually are receiving in with and under that the very body and blood of Jesus Christ, who has covered over your shame, your nakedness, your issues, your problems, your sin. Covers over your reputation, as good or bad as that might be. Your name is sturdy or as horrible as that might be. It covers up over all of that. We heard those words just a moment ago. That even though the world around us wants to keep pointing out our sin and make that an issue, even once we receive grace, they want to keep saying, hey, you know what? I don't know. Are you really a follower of Jesus? Are you really forgiven? Are you really redeemed? Satan wants you to buy into that lie. What does God say? No, I separate your sin from you like the east is from the west. I make you as white as snow. I cleared the slate. And so I have a friend who, over the last 10, 12 years, he comes to me every once in a while as he falls back into this addiction he has with alcohol, and Jesus still loves him, and Jesus still forgives him, even though he might do some really horrible things, even though he might have to deal with some really awful consequences. I've got a friend who has this shame in himself, this shame that he doesn't want the rest of the world to know because he's addicted to porn, and nobody knows, or hardly anybody knows. His wife doesn't even know, and it's eating him up inside, and yet Jesus still loves him. Jesus still forgives him. As I went to talk to Jim behind bars, came out and he was broken, and he really only wanted to know one thing. He wanted to know if he went too far. And I pointed him back to when he was baptized that day. That in that moment that God made a promise to him and said, you know what, you're mine, I love you, I forgive you for the sins that you've done and the stuff that you're gonna do in the future. I love you, you're my child. And I said, you know what, your love, the love that God has given to you, it doesn't have some clause on it that, you know what, I only love you as long as you don't ever get admitted into jail. I only love you as long as you don't do these certain things or cross this line so many times, or as long as you come to church so many weeks out of the year, kind of thing. No, there's no clause like that. Instead, God says, I never leave you or forsake you. I am the father of that prodigal son with my arms wide open. My love for you doesn't change. And so your nakedness, your shame, your guilt, your past, your present is covered by his grace. That doesn't mean that we stay where we're at. It doesn't mean we stay in jail. It doesn't mean we stay drunk. It doesn't mean we stay staring at porn or something like that. No. But it means that because of Jesus, we can again have a new beginning. Again. We can have a new beginning with freedom and hope. Freedom that releases me from the shame and the guilt and those voices that Satan wants to do to beat me up and to make me second guess of where I stand before Jesus. Of hope that God has given his Spirit to work inside of me and will continue to work inside me and give me the strength to say no to that which is so natural to me and go the other way, his way. And peace peace that God is bigger than whatever it is that you have in your life. That makes you question and wonder. So that divorce, that addiction, that sin, that thing that haunts you, Jesus still loves you. Jesus paid for you. Jesus forgives you. To wrap up, I want to go back to the other two brothers for a second, the other two sons, because I think there's something we can be learned from them and how they dealt with this exposed sin. First off, they didn't ignore the sin. And we aren't to ignore sin. When we come across the sins of other people in our life, of people we love, yeah, the world likes to tell us that we should just ignore it and we should walk the other way. It's none of our business. But guess what? We shouldn't walk away. But at the same time, we shouldn't be YouTubing each other's issues and dirty laundry. We're not to be twittering it out to the ends of the earth. We're not to get it into the gossip line. But instead, as followers of Jesus, our goal, our job is to cover other people's sin with grace. That's what those brothers did. That's what those sons did. They covered their dad's sin with grace. Sometimes we have to let that sin get exposed a little bit. And not so that they look bad or we look good or anything like that, but so that they see their sin. And so we can point them to the one who can cover them, which is Jesus. But our whole goal, with the people we love, is to cover that sin with grace and dignity. So once upon a family, there was a father that was given a brand new start, but he made a complete mess of it. And yet what he found was that even if, or should I say, even when we make a mess of our new beginnings, we have a God that doesn't give up on us or stop washing us clean. Let's pray. Dear Jesus, I thank you for the new beginning that you give us through your Son, Jesus Christ, and how you have redeemed our lives, Lord, that you have paid the penalty for us. And yet, Lord, there's often times that we buy into this lie, that we can allow ourselves to get convicted by the things that we fall back into. Lord, help us. Help us to know that your love has no bounds. Not that it frees us then just to do anything and everything, but that it frees us from that guilt, that shame, so that we can follow and step and be faithful to you. Lord, with the world around us, I pray that you would help us to bring the grace that people need and the covering of dignity that only comes through Jesus. That in the process, Lord, sin might be exposed. It has to be exposed. But it's exposed so it can have healing. Lord, give us the wisdom to do that, the strength to do that. Lord, that we might make a difference in the people in our lives and the people around us. In Jesus we pray. Amen.